We are live. Welcome to Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed. I'm your host, Chindi Ilonka, and today we're stepping into a sacred conversation that touches the very soul of what it means to lead, love, and evolve. Last week, we brought soul into the boardroom with the amazing Laura Gerrits, founder of Holistic Business University. And this week, we enter what's probably the most powerful boardroom of all, the home, the family. This is where the next generation is shaped and where cycles are either repeated or rewritten. Our amazing guest today is a visionary whose path speaks to the very heart of the Quantum Rebel movement, a path marked not merely by credentials or expertise, but by the soul earned wisdom, healing through devotion, and the courage to transform pain into purpose. Dr. Araba Afenyi-Annan is a retired physician, clinical researcher, and former national expert in transfusion medicine practices for sickle cell disease. But her most profound medicine emerged not in the hospital, but in the quiet, aching space of her personal transformation. After a life altering injury left her in deep chronic pain and despair, it was the unconditional love of her children that became her lifeline. In choosing intentionally to shift into a new way of being, she awakened a mission that was far greater than the one she began with. One that now serves not only her family, but families and future generations around the world. And today, she's a spiritual counselor, a transformational parenting mentor, and fierce advocate for parenting as sacred work, a loving commission to heal, awaken, and evolve. She teaches us that parenting, when rooted in presence, intention, and soul partnership, isn't about guiding those who we often perceive as knowing less, but about co evolving with wise beings who carry their own sacred knowing. It's the dynamic dance of teaching and learning about the true nature of love. It is generational healing and ancestral repatterning. It is the leadership in one of the most powerful yet often unseen forms. And she invites us to release hierarchy and embrace interdependence, to recognize our children not as extensions of ourselves, but as sovereign beings walking beside us to co create a world where cycles are rewritten, not repeated. In every word, she embodies what it means to lead with love, to honor the divine in the everyday, and to raise the next generation, not merely to succeed, but to fully remember their essence and rise. I don't know about you guys, but I am super excited to dive into this extraordinary conversation with Dr. Araba Afenyi-Annan. But before we do so, let's set the frequency for where we're headed. Because Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed isn't just a podcast, it's a portal, it's a frequency and an activation. And this next moment is the gateway. Welcome to Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed, a sacred transmission for a world that's not just remembering, but reimagining and co creating what's next. This isn't just a podcast, it's a portal, a frequency, a call into the next evolution of leadership. Not the kind that conquers or controls, but the kind that co creates. We're not here to choose profit or purpose, success or sustainability, achievement or balance. We're here to bridge the false divide and shape the future through frequency, not force. Led by visionaries, quantum rebels to be precise, who lead from essence, transmit from quantum intelligence, and magnetize from their soul-aligned core. This is how we build our quantum empires, not from ego, but from essence, not to dominate, but to co-create. We allow wealth, to flow through us as a sacred conduit for expansion, harmony, and elevation for all. I'm your host, Chindia Ilonka, founder and visionary catalyst of Quantum Rebel and the Quantum Empire Mastermind, igniting a new era of embodied soul-led leadership, intuitive mastery, and legacy-level impact. And while once we walked alone, the tides have turned like starling birds in synchrony, elephant herds remembering ancient paths, dolphin pods moving through flow, and wolf packs leading through deep intuitive resonance. We rise together. The era of the lone visionary is over. This is the rise of the Quantum Rebel Collective. You're not here by chance. You're here because your voice carries the quantum codes for a newly emerging, sustainable, thriving world. Let's begin. All right. Let's do a little drum roll and invite our amazing Dr. Araba Afenyi-Annan, whom I know as Araba.
Yes.
Araba, thank you for being here with us. How does it feel to be here together, to have this conversation together with each other?
Oh, it's such an honor, Ilanka. We've been on this journey for several years together, and most recently we were together in February. And I recall you talking about starting your podcast. So to be a guest here today, talking with you, I see quantum happening faster and faster and faster. I think you also embody that quantum, and you are a catalyst for so many. So I am blessed and honored to be here.
Thank you for saying that. And it really is the time for all of us. If we look at the world stage, we see what's happening with so much pain, so much struggle. This is the time for visionary voices to really unleash and to amplify. And that's why I find your gift that you're bringing into the world so powerful, because our young people, my mom always says this to me. She said, Ilonka, I don't worry about all these old folks. We've had our lives, but it's the young people that are going to make this new world. And the more we do what we're going to be talking about and really unpack how you found your way and the absolute gift you're bringing into the world, it is sometimes we don't realize just how big it is, because we tend to be over humble. But that's why this conversation, it just means the world to me. Mm-hmm. So every conversation is different. And I thought with you, what has always struck me is how you were able to, it's one of the shifts I talk about, but to transform what happened in your life, which may have brought others to their knees, but you were transformed. You intentionally walked through it and became somebody different on the other end. And I would love to start there, because I think that will be such an inspiration for others, that, if Araba can do this, so can I. Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Why don't you start us there, Araba?
Thank you so much. So I think what's important to know is my name, Araba, is girl born on Tuesday. I'm Fanti, and I'm a first generation American. I say that because Ghana was the first independent African country, and we speak English, and we are fiercely both independent and proud people. And the influence of the British can be seen in my parents' upbringing.
Okay.
That's the background. So I came to this country when I was 3, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor. After I wanted to be a cashier because I thought they had all the money. Right. So my mom was a nurse, and she said, if you're going to go into medicine, be sure, be a physician. I had that dream. I was able to go to college, med school, residency, and my first fellowship at the University of Michigan. Go Blue! And met my husband there too, and all of us are Michigan grads in our family.
Wow.
So it's lovely. We moved to North Carolina for me to do a research fellowship with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And at the time, I was the third pathologist to be awarded this opportunity and the first blood banker. So my background is in pathology and then laboratory medicine, blood bank transfusion medicine. As you mentioned, sickle cell was my area of specialty, and I was NIH funded and saw patients every day and was on call every third day. Fast forward to my first child. Uh, that's when the pain started. My fibroids, they grew as she grew, and then they started degenerating. So
Wow.
that was the first time while I was pregnant that I was in chronic pain, severe pain, to the point that I had to take narcotics to simply still be here. It was that painful. Beautiful baby girl, firstborn. A couple years later, second child, a son, so one of each. And I was hitting my stride in terms of being a tenured uh, faculty member, clinical faculty, when one day my children were sick. Can't send them to daycare when they're sick. Was bathing them, picked them up, 2-year-old and 4-year-old, and my back went out. Luckily, Kofi had just come in, their dad had just come in. So I was able to crawl to my room. And within 4 months, I had to go on medical leave and disability. My office was completely still there. And a year later, they packed it up and sent it to me. And it sat in my garage for 12 years. So all of this is I'm on year 15 now.
Wow.
I have had the experience of taking care of patients with chronic pain who are high users, and I've had the experience of being on the other side. And with my master's in public health, I really have seen the 360. And what I know to be true is that healing starts inside.
Mm.
What we do with Western medicine is we patch, we
Mhm.
temporize, and I am completely grateful having had my second hip replacement. But this idea of healing truly is an inward process. And my journey, I had nothing. It felt like I had nothing.
Mhm.
My identity, what I'd worked for my whole life, all of the things ways I saw myself. I was trying to live in a broken body. And after the fifth surgery in 3 years, I just, I wanted, I just didn't want to be here anymore. But the thing that kept me here are these gorgeous children with innocence and light. And for everyone else, I was broken, right? They saw all that I had lost.
Mm.
Such a shame. And that's sort of the tone they carried. But to my children, I was mom, right?
They saw
And
you.
they saw my true
Yeah.
light,
Wow.
and they held that for me until I could see it and hold it for myself. I knew I had to parent differently because half the time I was in bed. So I had to parent in a way that, yes, there's authority and there's structure,
Mhm.
but it is really had to be a partnership in that they had to have complete trust to be able to share with me and to know that I would always be there no matter what it is. And
Wow. Wow.
that was a gift. That was the blessing that came through the pain. And I'm grateful that you said, I became a parent, and now I have a bigger calling, which I've tried to say, yeah, no, no, thank you, but that doesn't work. So the universe is like, yes, here you go. So I am
Mhm.
gladly embracing this mission. And for me, I would describe it as shifting the way we think about parenting. When
Wow.
I was training
Mhm.
to be a spiritual counselor, I began to see that I would use my spiritual tools with other adults, but then I was doing all the things I'd always done and all the things I'd learned in my family when I was parenting. There was a big gap,
Two worlds.
two
Mm.
worlds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like the false division, that we have the duality of this world, which
Mhm.
is not really true, I had to find a way to bring those together into coherence and into unity. And so I didn't I didn't see any resources. I didn't know. There were very few places. There nobody I knew was talking about it. And at the time I'd also separated from my husband, and we were committed to keeping our family together. So I found A Course in Miracles, or like I should probably say it found me. And it has informed a lot of the way I see the world. It's allowed me to embrace a larger vision. And um, many times with my medical condition, I've been to the point where I've had to lay down in the middle of a store because I can no longer hold my body up, or lay on
Wow.
the sidewalk. And always somebody I didn't know would help me. I'd always get help. And I began to see and know that people are good,
Mm.
that we're all kind of in our silo and wrapped up in our own stuff, that we don't recognize that there's more, that there's a whole that we can be a part of. And spaces like this are just so important, where we can begin to unpack, as you said, these things. So how did I do all these? Like, put it together? Well,
Yeah.
I invited my children to be
Mm.
my partners, right? So
Wow.
as I was learning things, they were learning it too. Uh, I always wondered why they waited. They're in the mental health professions. There are
Mhm.
lots of tools, but you don't get those tools until you're in desperate straits. And I thought, it would be nice to know how to do emotion regulation. That is an important skill for me, and for me to teach my children how to say, please forgive me, and mean
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
How to not take things personally, understanding it's not about you, it's what's going on with the other person. So I invited them to partner with me. And over time, I saw that being careful with my words, like, what's wrong with you, which I'd heard a million times.
Mhm.
And my wise daughter one day said, Mom, I don't like it when you say that. And I'm thinking, what? What's wrong with you? It makes me feel bad. Talk about eye opening, right? So I always knew, and I always felt so honored that these souls, they came here like
Mhm.
this. And I have the honor of it's not even leading and guiding them, but providing a framework through which they can then fulfill their life destiny.
Yeah.
Um, and what I discovered was that in my healing and claiming, I heal my family. When I heal, everyone else heals. I don't have to do work externally on this relationship or that relationship. When I take ownership for my healing and be committed to being loving, everything transforms around me because it only takes one area. And so I began to see that parenting. You might not have known it, but you kind of signed up for being a healer and healing your family. And I always say, you have the opportunity to heal forward and backwards, right? In all directions of time. So it's never too late. Um, it's just been, I have been so blessed, and I will just say that I have been so blessed, and I'm grateful to be where I am today, here with you
Wow.
discussing this topic.
That is so beautiful. It's like everything compacted into one. Where do I start? One thing I really heard you say is that you created a deep level of trust where your children, because you needed them to come to you, because you weren't physically able to do that. That is so foundational, and I loved also what you said about, because we often do that. We are raised with, and it's not intentional that our teachers, our parents say, oh, you did this wrong, you don't, or don't do this or don't do that. We have, as a society, as a humanity, we have been raised in the negative.
Yes.
And it's I think that's why we hit it off so quickly from day one, the beginning, because it's our words also matter,
Our words.
and that's so beautiful. And I wonder, because sometimes I hear you talk about what's happened and what you do now, and it's like, up to you, you've been through it, and it's you can see it. But I wonder, if was there ever a moment that you could see yourself shifting from being the victim, because in a way life really threw a huge curveball at you. Everything you dreamed of was like smacked away, not little by little. It was just, the rug was pulled underneath you. And I wonder, was there a moment, or has it been gradual, that you started seeing and really consciously reframing and stepping more into the gratitude of all this that is now, this wisdom that has emerged or was emerging as you were transforming through this?
Well, I want to first say that I still lose it. I still have days that are very, very challenging. Over the summer, I had my 9th surgery, and I had to relearn to walk again. So I continue to have medical things to navigate, but healing, as I said in the beginning, it's an inside job. And for me, I believe that the shift started happening when I found A Course in Miracles.
Okay.
And part of that is because every day there's a lesson and you practice the lesson all day long. And I found that I could be anchored in whatever the lesson was for the day and apply it in my life. And that, I think, was the beginning. I also had an experience of forgiveness. I had a relationship in college and it didn't end well. And one day it came to me. I was doing a program and they said, who in your life have you not forgiven? And it came to me and I reached out. And now they're one of my closest friends. So we didn't
Wow.
speak for 25 years. So I got to see the power of forgiveness.
Wow.
I got to see that the more I stopped inserting myself in my children, the more they blossomed, right? And I got it that a lot of what we do, we think we're imparting, and yet they're here to help us remembering. We are spending most of our lives trying to undo. And I thought, well, what would happen if they didn't have to do that undoing? How much more energy and space and utilization of their consciousness could they
Yep.
use if they didn't have to undo? So that became my intention. And I definitely do not want to give the impression that it's all like believe, because it's not. And I
No, but
work with clients, right,
and it
who
remains a
I
human
have,
journey.
it's a
Exactly.
human journey. And there
Yeah.
were many times I did not want to be here. I've had so many people come to my aid and service because I would never want to leave my children with that legacy.
Yeah.
Their grandfather committed suicide. And
Wow.
so it's a very personal thing in our family. And yet, A Course in Miracles told me that even in a broken body, that I had a purpose and a function. And that was life changing.
Even in a broken body, I have a purpose and a function. That's worth repeating, Araba. I love what you say, that what I hear you say is that the Course of Miracle is kind of the foundation, that broad, that structure actually gave birth to you actually building upon it and really making it into something that is unique and that came through Araba. To make it practical, because either we're parents or we are in relationship with younger people, so we're all parenting in one way or another. It doesn't matter if we actually gave birth or not. I feel we really all have some kind of parenting function, you know. So,
Absolutely.
and I know you give classes and you're a mentor. So maybe we can share for the parents and the parent like, or those of us that did not actually birth children, but that have, it's a role that we all carry. What are some words of wisdom? What are things that you could say, okay, these are the things, start with this. How would you work with your parents when you step into that relationship?
Hmm. So every client is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And even still, one of the things that I, having had a life of education where I also taught, but I have an insatiable uh, thirst for learning. And and that helps me see connections in so many things. So a song to Shakespeare to, to geometry. And so that helps to see ourselves as interconnected with everything else, right?
That's deep, because we often step through it. We just kind of think we're on our own, in our own little world, and yet we're so interconnected. That's beautiful, Araba. I'm sorry, I just had to say that, but continue, please.
Oh, thank you. So being open to hearing um, what is being said. A Course in Miracles tells us that people are, they behave in a way that shows you how they think of themselves, who and what they are, and who and what you are to them. So if we take that premise and that we are all interconnected, what I do matters. And what I do in my day to day becomes my habit, becomes a way of being and operating. And oftentimes, those things are so unconscious. We can very consciously say we don't want to be like our parents. And yet, that is what we know. And that's the vibration and the frequency that we default to. And I saw that with both me and my husband. We had very different upbringings. And in times of stress, you go to where you know. So I think the number one piece of beginning a process of intentionally and sacred parenting is awareness,
Okay.
and awareness in a way that you may never have thought of it before. The awareness of being interconnected, the awareness of what you see and hear and touch has gone through a computer with a perspective and come out with information, right? It's not actually the true information. Otherwise, how could we be spinning on a rock in the middle of space, right? And so allowing yourself to recognize, perhaps I don't know.
Wow.
Perhaps I don't know. And my mantra began to be, I don't know, but I know who knows, right? And I could reach into my faith and reach into being led in an intuitive way. This experience in my life, it brought back to me things I'd forgotten. I grew
Wow.
up being intuitive, but it didn't seem very useful. Definitely not the way of medicine at the
Mhm.
time. So I, there's almost a point of rediscovering your true self. I think children give you that permission to explore because they're so accepting, right? And I really believe that we can learn so much by listening. Listening. So our awareness. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen children play? So if you want to know what your children think of you, listen to them play, and you will hear and you will see behaviors, and you'll say, "Oh, you know where that came from," right? And that's part of the awareness and the ownership of what I do matters,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. That's very powerful. Awareness and listening. In Quantum Rebel, I write about the 7 shifts of transformation. And the first one is become a master of awareness, because it's not just awareness. This goes so deep because, like you say, we have so many layers and layers and layers of conditioning that has been put, not just in this lifetime from what we heard from our parents and our teachers, but this goes, eons and generational messaging and trauma, and that we take as our own, and so I find that very powerful. And how you made the link to, and life helped you in a
Yes.
unfortunately a painful way, but I find it so courageous of you, how you, despite the pain, and that's the other shift, is consciously reframe our life experiences, because sometimes in that deepest moments of pain lies the seed of that greatest wisdom that is waiting to come out. And I truly commend you for, and like you say, still walking the journey, because the journey is still not perfect, it's still filled with pain. And we both keep and hold the space that that one day can go, maybe somebody's listening to this podcast. Who knows, that we're interconnected. But that's
Absolutely.
beautiful. That is beautiful to really become deeply aware of ourselves and to listen, because our children are saying the things, but we just need to really hear it at a deep level and allow that to touch our soul also.
Yes, I think part of that is being okay with being wrong. So
Mm.
I was in medicine. You can't really, I was in the blood bank. We're highly regulated. You can't really be wrong because people died. Okay.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so,
It's both, it's the
right.
logical part and the rational part that is life. And then there's that expansiveness that we have still as a humanity, the invitation to open up more to. You know? And
When we
and
put
when
them together, right?
exactly, then even the rational becomes, it gets a human, because we still have to do the steps, and like you say, you can't be wrong when you're dealing with certain things in the medical field, but still we're humans in that field. And even if we're at the highest ranks, our emotions matter. And how we talk to one another and how we honor each other really, really matters. And one thing, because both my sister and her husband are both physicians. And during COVID, you really, really saw that coming to absolute maximum. That, I mean, these are human beings that are dealing with such huge pressures moment by moment. And who is taking care and listening and having that awareness that they are also humans walking through this journey.
You bring
So,
such a good point up. Um, we have part of our conditioning is that the more we sacrifice, the better mothers we are. And so we perpetuate that with our own children. They see us not taking care of ourselves, over giving, being dependent upon, making things the sphere of your life around a child. That is not helpful because that's not honoring to yourself. So, one of the pieces of conditioning that I find is so important to break is this idea everyone else is important and I'm not. So I encourage my clients to say everyone is important and so am I. Because
wow.
if you are giving from emptiness, you're not giving very much.
Yeah. Wow.
You're probably
That
doing
is
more harm.
powerful. Everyone is important and so am I. That's worth repeating also. Wow. And, these are things that actually they make sense to us, but it's in the doing and in the being that we actually forget. And that's why I love what you say. It takes deep awareness, because it's when we look at our lives on the outside, then we can kind of re engineer and understand what's going on the inside. And we can start to rewrite those patterns that keep our outside locked in this, this. When I was working with executive clients, I said, it's like, we're in this, like the gerbil going around and around, 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 this poor
Absolutely.
gerbil. You think you're going somewhere, but it's causing all these stress levels, and it's affecting us, and then also how we show up in our world and also in our children's world. Wow.
Absolutely.
I know something that maybe not everyone or not all our listeners know, and that
Yeah.
is that you have been writing, because that's how we met. We met with Christine Closer's Kapusha Publishing in Transformational Authors, and we have been writing together. And I know that something is cooking there on your end. You want to talk a little bit about that? Maybe
There,
just kind of,
yes.
give
A
a little bit of a
tease,
teeny little bit.
tease a thread. Yes. So people like you, Ilanka, and our fellow authors have just been an incredible support. And if anybody of you listening would like to write a book, please know that's a whole nother level of inviting transformation into your life.
Absolutely well said.
Right, right.
She
Um,
warned us, Christine warned us that, as you go, you will be transformed. You will not be the same person that comes out if it's a transformational book. So, yeah.
Perfect. And so that has been a longer journey for me, and I'm finally getting to realize why. And
Wow.
part of why is that my background, right, is medical. And I presented a lot of things in the book in a way that is sort of textbook like, versus how do I really use this in my day to day, right? So it's also having the narrative, also having those moments, those light bulb moments, and then what do you do with those things? And so as I've stepped back to include more stories like my daughter saying, I don't like it when you say that, mom. It makes me feel bad. Or my son, I'm like, you always do this. He's like, no, I don't. Yeah, actually, always and never, those are reserved for the infinite,
Yeah.
the eternal.
Yeah.
So, So the ways in which we have sort of accepted the way we talk. So one of the very important and I think very practical tools is looking at the words you use and making decisions. You talked about, we were taught a lot of don't. And A Course in Miracles says, yeah, you could say one sentence of what you do, but instead we do 10 sentences of what we don't. And so if you have a few basic rules, guideposts in your family, it's so much easier and allow the rest to kind of flow in it. It's so much easier for you to stay in your peace as well. And for you're honoring you. We talk about raising children, but we're actually raising adults. We're not raising children, and so having the intention of where you mean to go is so important.
Wow. I'm sure some of the listeners may be thinking if they want to get in touch with you, if they would be interested, for example, in maybe doing some work with you, how would they find you? Is there anything you want to share? And I'll put it in the show notes later on, but maybe you
Okay.
can speak it out and then at least they know, because they've been listening now and I'm sure their hearts are touched. But it's very important. Yeah, this is very deep and practical. That's what I love. You bring the two together so that it's not just, it doesn't sound good that we go, yeah, but you also help us understand, okay, what does it look like in real world? And how can I now do something with that? How could they reach you? Do you have a website
Yeah,
or?
I do, and it's still under construction a little bit, but that is hooray4healing.com. HOORAY, the number 4, healing. And right now, the page is linking to the transformational anthology, the Course Creators Anthology that I
Okay.
had the honor of being part of. But I also have a Facebook business page under Hooray for Healing. You can
Okay.
find me there. And I will also give you my email is hooray4healing@gmail.com. You might hear the theme of healing. That is important for me. And I just want us always to celebrate. We are healing. We may not see it. And that's why we need each other. That's why we need
Wow.
each other.
Wow. On that note, I think that really encapsulates it because it also, especially going back to the parenting part, I think it can sometimes feel really lonely that you're the only one dealing with this. And there's no, I mean, we always say there's no booklet that says how to raise your children. And so it's not that you're bringing a booklet, but you are bringing guideposts and principles that parents and families can hold. I love the awareness, the listening, and that together we are so much more powerful when we recognize we are interdependent beings, and we become more powerful when we do it together. So, on that note, Araba, I want to thank you from the heart for having this conversation. For the listeners, we are going backstage because it doesn't end here, Araba. We're going to go and into the Quantum Rebel VIP room. If you haven't signed up yet, please do so for next time so that you can, also be close to these amazing visionaries so you can ask questions and go deeper. And on that note, let's say we will see you next time. Thank you, Araba.
Thank you, Ilanka. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you. You've been listening to Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed. These are the voices re architecting what's next, not through hustle, but through harmony, not through domination, but through sacred resonance. If your soul whispered yes, you already belong. Subscribe, share, return each week. And if you feel the resonance, come backstage with us in the Quantum Rebel VIP Lounge immediately following the show. Because this isn't just a podcast, it's the uprising of a new era, the quantum era of light. And together, we're shaping a luminous, awakened future from the inside out. Let's breathe that in, feel the shift, and remember, you were born for this.